You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.
Welcome to Above the Garage, a Nick and June, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. Hi, friends, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 4 of our rewatch. This episode is entitled Something Latin. So we brought a Latin expert onto our panel today who took a whopping 4 years of Latin in high school. So, Julia, could you tell us the name of this episode?
Yeah, it's called Nolite Te Bastardes Carborundorum.
And aptly named. So let's do some introductions and then dive right in.
Hi, I'm Julia.
Hi, I'm Marigold.
I am Ginger.
I am Scarlett.
And I'm Kate. So did you guys have any thoughts at the start of this episode? I thought the music was interesting in the beginning because they're playing Daydream Believer. And she's trying to like drag herself out of her daydream because she thinks she's just going to go crazy if she lets it take hold.
Well, she's been there for 13 days.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Like how can the thing that drives me nuts about Serena at this point is that, I mean, she must know a little bit about how babies are made outside of just the mechanics, you know, like a woman's mental health is relevant to the baby's survival and viability. And she seems to not know that, or it's not worth it to her to treat June well. And it's surprising to me, especially because, I mean, they may have cattle prodded a miscarriage out of her in the last episode, right?
Yeah.
They thought she was pregnant.
That's true.
Literally like abused her physically and cattle prod her, which will, I imagine, end in a miscarriage most of the time. And then she punishes her. And it's I hate her being locked in this room for 2 weeks.
But 13, think about it though, 13 days and she has nothing to do. Like no phone, no books, no one to talk to. I mean, it wasn't even the window kind of locked. Like she couldn't really see out.
Yeah,
that
it was like shuttered up.
I guess the shutters, because you can see the light coming through, but she can't get to it.
Yeah, no wonder why she's laying on the floor in her closet staring at the wall. Because I mean, what are you going to do for 13 days, you know?
Yeah.
You can only sleep so much.
I'm trying to pry the window open and look out, and they're all bruised up. That was a detail.
Maybe do a little word game with the writing inside of the...
Yes, that's true.
Well, that's when she discovers, you know, the words written that I cannot pronounce. And she says, she sees words, and in her voiceover, she says, if you're caught writing, you lose a hand. So we know that's a punishment for writing.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that like at the beginning of her flashback with Luke and Hannah, you can tell that like she's mentally slipping, but she's also like aware that she's mentally slipping too. Mm-hmm. And she tells herself, I can't do this. It's dangerous. If I let myself fall in too far, I won't get out. So it's just interesting to see that kind of like the deterioration of her mental health, but she knows that she like needs to be strong. So it's kind of like the balance of those two aspects of her. So I thought that was really interesting.
It is fascinating. I don't think that I would be able to maintain that. I would go to whatever fantasy land I needed to escape from there. But she seems focused on surviving real life too.
I think that flashback though is like you can also tell a lot about her mental health because it's so like idealized and it's very fuzzy and like super happy, and like all the moments that they're focusing on are so like perfect, you know. Right. And the song is called Daydream Believer, and I thought it was kind of funny because, you know, a lot of us have kids and we all know these moments with kids are never perfect.
I can't think of one moment that's perfectly happy.
It never goes that smooth. So like I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point.
But I think that's her, you know, we've talked about this before where like she's idealizing Luke and Hannah, and she's focusing on Hannah to kind of help get her out of that dark place that she's going to. But then, like she says, she can't go too far with these memories because then it's just too painful,
Yeah.
I think Hannah's what keeps her going. The idea of getting Hannah back is what just gets her going, because she has something to hold on to.
Yeah.
That would be the case, I think, with any of us.
Any of us.
But also I noticed too, like when she's not to get too ahead of ourselves with the episode, but when she's in the car with Nick coming back from the doctor's office, she's in the doctor's office. She has the flashback of Luke and Hannah, because, obviously that's like that whole doctor's incident wasn't fun. And then immediately there's the flashback, and then she's in the car with Nick, but she said Hannah's name. I think, what did she say? Mommy loves you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like at that point, I think she was purely focusing on Hannah to help bring her out of her fear, and just knowing now she's got to go back to that house and be locked up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that doctor's visit too, like that's hard to watch also. So he's trying to get her to vent to him, saying it's safe, but you could never trust that, right? You can't trust anybody in Gilead. So of course she just lays there silent when he says, like, how are they treating you? Very well. And then he offers to impregnate her, or try, for her own good. And she says, I can't. And it's very cringe for me. I don't know if he is just trying. It seems like maybe he's just trying to take advantage of the situation.
Well, the way I saw it, I honestly thought the doctor was a gender traitor for some reason. It gave me that vibe when I first saw it and when I rewatched it again. But he also gives her this bit of information where he says most of those guys are sterile.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we didn't know that. We just knew that there was a fertility crisis, and obviously the women were probably blamed, but it isn't the woman, it's the men that are sterile. Mm-hmm. So that was an important piece of information for us to have.
Definitely.
She was shocked. Mm-hmm.
And you also brought up a relevant point about his tomato conversation right before we started this call that I had not noticed.
Yeah, he's like, oh, my tomatoes are growing. He says something about, like, he's gardening, something about his tomatoes. He's talking to her, again, very nonchalant about it, which was weird, because I think he was just trying to help. And it comes to the people that are stuck in Gilead. Not everybody believes in Gilead. They're just stuck there. And some people are trying to help, but they're not going to risk their neck for strangers. That's not how it works.
Well, yeah. So that's what, like, when watching that, I'm trying to figure out, wait, is he just trying to take advantage of the situation and have sex, or is he actually trying to help her? And I kind of came to the other conclusion than you did, but I think that you might be right, that he was actually just trying to help her. And he obviously listened when she said no, which is not a Gilead thing. So
yeah.
I thought he was trying to help her too, but then, like, I rewatched it a couple times, and I thought it was interesting because June mentions in the beginning of the episode that her door doesn't lock in her bedroom. And then when the doctor starts talking to her about all this, he locks the door. So then he starts, saying he can help her out. But then, like, he touched her thighs, like his hands started pretty far.
He also called her honey. Yeah.
He called her honey. And if you look, she had this like teeny little smile. Because I was like, well, maybe he's trying to be nice. But then I really noticed, like, the hands, the honey, and then the little smile. And I'm like, no. Yeah, like, it's one thing asking her to help, do you want help? But, like, now you're putting your hands on her, and you're also an OBGYN. So, like, that's really sketch,
I'm glad that you noticed that detail, because I couldn't put my finger on why I thought he was maybe awful, but that could be why. But we skipped over a big so Rita finds her on the floor. And by the way, I think it's really interesting that Rita matches all the walls in the house, like her drab uniform. Her drab uniform, though, it matches like everything upstairs in Offred's realm. And then her drab uniform looks a little nicer in the eating area, where it also matches the nicer walls, and she like blends in like a chameleon. I was like, the wardrobe is very, very good at their job, I guess. But so she finds her, and June, that's, I think, where you see her first kind of fake manipulation face. Not that It's very believable that she fainted there, but she kind of puts on that mask for Rita and says, I guess I fainted. And she goes and tells Serena, who doesn't buy it, but then she brings up that it's ceremony night. So, that's all that matters. So she decides to take her to the doctor. And I love how excited June's face was when she's contemplating walking an hour in the rain to the doctor's office. And it's raining hard. You can hear like hard rain on the shutters.
Yeah.
And she's so excited, and it sucks because, of course, Serena wouldn't let her have that. But yeah, so she has Nick Driver, and then Serena puts that divider up. This has actually always bothered me, despite loving Nick and June throughout all 4 seasons. I hate that he doesn't put that down.
I was wondering that too.
Yeah.
I was like, what is like preventing him from just putting it back down and then back up when they get home?
Right. I mean, he gives her a look of like disgust, like, what is wrong with you? How can you be so awful? But he can put that down.
The only thing I could think of is maybe he didn't, just because I feel like this episode was a little bit of like a turning point for him, where he has to kind of decide how much of a risk does he want to take for this woman. So like maybe he wasn't ready to take a risk and like break the rules and put the partition down. And because I just thought later in the episode, like when they get home from the doctor's appointment and she seems pretty mad at him.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if she was.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if she was necessarily mad at him or just the situation or like what he represents. But I feel like maybe he just wasn't ready to take the risk. And then by the end of the episode, like, I don't know, maybe behind the scenes, he's making that decision.
Right.
Yeah.
One like micro moment that someone pointed out on somewhere on the internet, though, is, and I've heard someone say maybe he left it up so that she could take out her frustrations. She's like beating the window and screaming and et cetera, et cetera. Again, I would much prefer he rolled down the partition, but he also does reach his hand back towards her, like just around like the seat to the glass. And that's about all we can say for what Nick did in that, in this part of the show. But
do love when they're walking to the car and he's holding the umbrella.
Yeah.
And
the shot.
Yeah, the shot is just so beautiful with like the rain coming down
The
on the umbrella.
cinematography.
Yes. But also like I feel like it's kind of symbolism. The umbrella is like protecting her and Nick, I can't not mention that. I know it's kind of cheesy, but it was cute symbolism to me.
Yeah.
It's like a pretty common theme for lovers to share an umbrella, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
When he's holding the umbrella though, like if you notice, he's holding it more on her because he's getting all wet.
He's so wet when he gets in the car.
Yeah.
He's like soaking
But like
wet
even when you're looking, like he's got it mostly over her, and then he's like his whole back is exposed. Basically, only his head was underneath it, so he's already chivalrous.
In that scene when they come back, something I noticed is the first time June's actually vulnerable, and she completely falls apart and starts banging on the glass. It's the first time she really falls apart, and it's again with Nick. But when they get home and she's just sitting there frustrated or deflated, or I also don't know if she was mad at him. He tells her, I wish. And she's like, you wish what? I mean, she says it a little bit softer. She's like, you wish what? Like, tell me what do you want? And
I think
he offers her hand and she doesn't take it. And he looks frustrated, like shit.
Yeah.
And then the scene cuts up weird though. Like you see her walking and you see her back, and then the scene ends there. I don't know if there was more to it or not, but it always bothered me. Like, that's it. That's the scene. I don't know.
That's how I would have reacted to him in that situation.
I had the thought though that maybe she was mad at him just because he said I wish. But in the episode before it with the ice, when he was in her room, he had said, I wish I could have just driven away with you. Yeah. So maybe she just felt like, okay, we're in the car, you're driving, you're saying you wish, so why? Maybe she's mad, like, why didn't you just drive away with me? Which is why I think that this episode was probably like a turning point for him. Like
you all just talk.
I'm offering my hand to her, I'm saying I wish, but now she's mad. But it's like, oh shit, well, I keep telling her I wish I could do these things, but I'm not actually doing it. So that's why I think
that's a very good
maybe
point,
he might have had a change of heart.
Right.
I kind of interpreted it as she wasn't necessarily mad at him. I think she was just mad at the situation, and he was there and she felt safe enough to kind of take it out on him kind of in a way, which I know sounds kind of bad, but it also shows that like she's comfortable with him. Like there's no way that she would have even done that in front of Rita, or I mean, God forbid if she freaked out like that in front of another guardian, like she probably wouldn't be alive.
No,
I think because Nick's already shown her that she can trust him, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely shows even in this episode that she feels safe around him, because you can't act like that obviously around anyone else. So whether he performed to the best of his abilities, she still trusts him to some extent at least. And I like the way that they interlay the flashbacks in this, not more than Moira flashbacks of them in the Red Center interlaid with, because like even like with the writing in the closet earlier, which we've already discussed a little, you know, they flipped to Moira writing in a bathroom stall, like writing Aunt Lydia sucks. I just think they're just brilliant at the way that they like overlay the flashbacks with the current time.
And she had just said in her voiceover that writing can cost you your hand. So then you see it in both scenes.
Yeah. I also love that Moira says, I'm doing this so that the next girl that comes in here knows that she won't be alone. And then I realized that was like a parallel to the Nolite inscription.
Yeah. And I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said something at the time like, I hope you got out of here, or I can't remember what it was, but she does not know that the earlier operative is dead at that time. And she's feeling empowered by her leaving this message.
When she comes back from the hospital, from the doctor, she goes and Serena asks her, so are you dying, in her fucking bitchy ass voice. And June's like, no,
it's the only
fine.
Voice she has, Scarlett.
I know. And then June kind of switches and she has to kind of like bow down to Serena and be like, you know, I know that I disappointed you, and kind of like, oh, I hate this part. She's just trying to manipulate her, like, please just let me out of my room. And Serena does, and she's like, just go to your room. And you see June grabbing the bed. And when she goes to the room, she's doing her voiceover and she asks, like, how did you survive her?
Yeah.
Which we at the end of the episode know that she didn't survive her.
And yet Serena learned nothing. Like, that's the thing that just continually drives me insane, is that she knows that she's risking this baby's life, her handmaid's life by the way that she's treating her, and she doesn't change her behavior.
Serena is just hungry for power. Whatever power she can have that she lost willingly when she decided to side with the ones that were going to take away our rights, she's just going to hold on to that and fuck anybody over that's going to take that away from her.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how when they were having breakfast too, Fred says we have good men working on it, and it's like just that subtle, like, using men, not good people, like subtle reminders. Well, that she's just not a part of it. And part of me wonders, when Serena was a part of, you know, the creation of Gilead, did she realize that she wouldn't have like any part in it, really? Like, I know that
I don't think so.
I don't think she believed that.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
She thought she was going to have her privilege. That's why she's so bitter, because Fred has no power. That's why, I know we haven't gotten to this part yet, but when June starts manipulating Fred, and we see it in this episode, she uses that very specific voice, and it's very, very, very obvious to anyone watching it. Yeah. And I know they did that on purpose because it's meant to show that Fred is a fucking idiot. And the one that has the
June is a terrible actor.
Yeah, in that sense, she's doing it very obvious, and it's because Fred has no power. He rose to power with Serena by his side. Serena had the voice. Serena had the power to convince people. Serena had everything, and he just rode her coattails, and then he just shut her out. But that's what you got for betraying your own. Not a fan of Serena.
No. And I think she's just getting even like more desperate, like in this episode. I think it's pretty apparent that like she wants a child. And
quick shout out to Yvonne, who is an amazing actress, and that is why we love to hate Serena.
We love Yvonne. We hate Serena.
That's right. Also, I think the makeup department like pegged the like hell out of Fred's look. Like Fred is the perfect douchebag commander. I don't know. Somehow the whole face
And with
everything.
June too in the beginning, like how she looked so incredibly ragged. Like they did a great job of making her look like that.
Yeah. And in the ceremony, like her, I don't know. I just noticed this time around her eyes are so red. She looks bad, like very bad, which is how you would look if you were stuck in your room for 13 days and had only the ceremony to look forward to.
This episode also has the flashbacks to the Red Center when they're being trained to be handmaids.
Yes.
And in this episode is when they find out that they are going to be raped every month.
Well, I thought it was interesting before that because Moira's like worst case scenario when she's like, oh, it's going to be this bad. They're going to put like turkey basters with old benches inside of us. And that is literally like the worst she's imagining.
Yeah.
And very soon, as they're laying around, it does look like they're kind of in like a labor like training and they tell them what's about to happen. And they're like, the shock, obviously.
You're flower that's going to be seeded or watered or something. That's what Aunt Lydia says, and Janine is like, flowers.
Yeah.
But their faces when they realize, like, what? And I caught it when I watched it. That's when they realized that they were going to be raped every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Moira was brave enough to like actually ask the question out loud. Like, wait, am I actually understanding this correctly? It's crazy.
I can't be, right?
Yeah.
I like the Moira scenes, and I like the attempted escape.
Yeah.
And I would have done a lot worse to that aunt than they did.
Actually, before we move on, I just wanted to point something out too. I noticed in the doctor's office, and this kind of ties in to the whole handmaid thing. If you notice when June's waiting in the waiting room and then there's that pregnant handmaid and she's smiling and you have the pregnant handmaid and then behind her you have the pictures of the commanders and the wives and the baby with the handmaid sitting right there. And I just thought, like, first of all, from a cinematography perspective or whatever, like that's just a genius little detail. Yeah. But I just thought, it again ties into like the whole handmaid. Like she truly is a vessel. Like her only purpose is to have this baby and then give it to them, and that's it.
You're right.
Yeah,
those pictures really
like she's even caressing her belly. Is like,
but she's happy.
Like she's happily pregnant, and then you get this shot on those pictures, and you see all those happy families, and you just know that none of these women actually bore that child.
Right.
Also, like maybe on a funnier note, I actually paused on that picture with the framed posters, and it's pretty funny because it's kind of the same actors in different combinations. like some kind of Gilead swinger club thing going on there.
It's funny.
That's really funny.
I look forward to going back and seeing that.
Yeah,
you should check that out.
Great catch, Julia.
The escape attempt.
Yeah, the escape attempt.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that.
That was harsh because, I mean, obviously what you said, Kate, that you would have been a lot worse to the aunt, but they weren't ruthless yet. Which is something that's interesting because you see how the aunts dehumanize them. We'll see that afterwards, obviously in the same episode. But like they don't hurt her, and Moira says, actually the one that hurts her is June, the one that hits her with a cattle prod. And Moira what says is, just remember that I didn't like hurt you or shove this down your throat if it comes to that. And then they leave and they start walking, and then they see all the images when they get, I guess that's a plaza. I don't know what that was. They were burning books and they were bodies. And when they're walking in the subway, you see all the men coming out in suits. All the men, it was all men. And then when they get there, the scene was really heartbreaking because you see June standing by herself and you see Moira making that split second decision, and June looks at her and smiles.
Yeah,
like
June
go,
very clearly,
go. And Moira is like devastated. When she leaves, you instantly see June's face just completely fall apart. because she knows she's never going to see Moira again.
I wonder if a part of her though, like, because I definitely know, think she wanted Moira to get out, especially because she had the opportunity. But I still wonder, like, was a part of her mad? Because I was kind of confused, like, why she didn't go with Moira or tell the Guardian, like, I'm with the aunt, and then just go with her. So I just wonder if there's like a small part of her that's like, I wish I was with her,
Yeah. I think it's also interesting how, like, the Guardians, when June and Moira were walking past them, like, out of the Red Center, Moira just flashed her badge and, like, they tried to question her, but then, like, she just said something back and they just let her go. Like, it's just interesting to me that, do ants have more power than Guardians at that point? Or is this just so early on in Gilead that they don't know who has the higher authority?
Yeah, maybe that.
So I don't know.
I've always thought ants have more power.
Yeah,
I think they do.
Yeah.
Also, in the breakfast scene with Serena and Fred, they were talking about an ant escaping and telling the Toronto Star or some newspaper all this terrible stuff about Gilead. That's true. So then it made me wonder, so the ants don't necessarily want to be there either, but they seem to get pretty well into their roles, which, I know that happens in this kind of situations, but I don't know. We don't know much right now, right, about how they become ants.
No.
Yeah. So
it is explained in the testaments.
I wanted to make a comment about Moira and June and their capturing of the ant.
Yeah.
So she, as now we're in the 4th episode, so we're seeing June build up a little bit to become like the badass handmaid that we know now. But I thought it was interesting because Moira was kind of like running the show there when they took the ant.
Right.
And June was being very meek. And then, and she kind of looked like a little surprised and, and then they get downstairs and all of a sudden June is like power hungry. And she's the one with the cattle prod and she's the one like threatening her and being really tough. And I just thought it was, and Moira even kind of looked at her and was like, June, come on. And I just feel like you're starting to see like the badass woman come out that we know. So she's building.
Right.
The layers are coming off of the meekness that Gilead made her to be, and society before.
I was going to say,
she wasn't like that
made
before.
her
not just Gilead.
Yeah. She didn't need to use it.
Yeah. So then that night they have the ceremony, and Fred. It's strange to me that there's a pocket of time where June could be kneeling and Fred would come in for that amount of time to talk to her. But anyway, it happened. So June's kneeling. Fred comes in early to have a little chat, which she later understands as he needs that to connect in order to
not be flaccid Fred.
Blasted Fred.
This poor man. Oh my God.
That was hard to watch.
I know, it was so awkward.
I don't know how they did that, but the sounds were like, oh.
All right, but first he asks, like, can we have a rematch of Scrabble? He specifically says, and she's taken aback, I guess, and doesn't respond the way he wants quickly enough. Not that he's angered either, but I guess Rita's coming, so he has to get up before she can. I mean, she's been stuck in a room for 13 days, so I'm surprised she hesitated. So then Rita and Nick come, Serena looking as angry as ever, tapping her cigarette case. But yeah, so they get into the ceremony room and it's even more awkward than the last time as he struggles to perform. The look on her face, like she's actually like, I don't know, annoyed. It's just dragging it out, She knows like it's going to happen. Or she thinks that, and this is just making it more complicated and awkward. So she's annoyed, and he leaves, and Serena tries to help him. It's the most awkward.
She gets shut down.
I know.
Yeah. I think it's really funny that like Fred says that he wants connection, but then like when Serena like kind of tries to connect with him, he just rejects her. Like you can just tell that like he just doesn't love or even want Serena.
Yeah, it's
which ties
interesting.
into that, I think, that whole aunt conversation where he shuts Serena down and is like, we have good men working on it. Like, and Serena looks like she just, she's offended. And then here we go again. Now her husband's having trouble performing. She's trying to connect with him and he's shutting her down again. Like, I don't need you. Now I have this handmaid,
This one's worse. This shutdown is worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's like he keeps on like reminding her, like putting her in her place,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like I think even in just back in 1, I think is when they're like having a dinner or having a meeting, and he like shuts the door and tells her they'll see her at dinner or something. Like it's a common theme he likes to rub it in her face that she does not have any power anymore. So it's interesting. I look forward to seeing their previous relationship in future episodes to understand how you got to the point where he seems to have disdain for her, even though she's obviously like an attractive, intelligent woman.
I also like saw it maybe in the light of this is a form of pleasure, kind of. And I mean, so
the ceremony for him, you mean?
No, the
offer on the table?
Serena's offer.
Attempted blowjob.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
so this is not very like in their faith. Maybe I saw it like this.
Yes.
Probably that was also the problem for Fred, that he was like this. He's this faithful man, so he cannot have sex or whatever, or just for pleasure. It needs to be for a cause.
Like that's what I wondered, if that's kind of why he was saying it. I still don't believe it deep down, even if like I still think there's other issues, like, but I think that's kind of what his excuse was.
It might be a power thing too.
Anytime he can shut her down and make her feel,
because if she has the power to help him get ready for the ceremony, and then he's supposed to, and he wants to connect June, like he doesn't want to connect with his wife. So I think, and that's what I was wondering, if maybe it was like more of a power thing. Like I can't let her help me because then she's a part of this,
That's true.
Serena was more than willing to help him go rape some other woman. So I'm going to help you perform so that then you can go and rape another woman. Like, it's a little messed up.
Put it accurately. So she does go back to his room that night, which by the way would be kind of awkward after the whole scene that just happened. But
because she realized that he needed to connect, like she noticed that in her voiceover, she says it. Yeah, she's like, he needed to connect, and then that's when it clicks on her, and she goes and plays Little Miss Nice.
That might have made me do the opposite because I like him being embarrassed. But also, I haven't been stuck in my room for 13 days, so I would like to play Scrabble if I were stuck in my room for 13 days. So she goes to the study, and they have a rematch, and she says also like, I won't let you win, or I could let you win this time. Something. She didn't admit that last time, did she?
I think she said something along those lines in the first time. Yeah.
I should know that since I've just rewatched all these episodes. Apologies to the audience. All right. So they're playing Scrabble, and now he asked her to go get the dictionary because he's like challenging her word. I love that. Don't challenge her. But just like touching books, you can see how much that means to her, having been a normal human being and a book editor in previous world. She takes a long time just running her hands over the books before she gets the dictionary, and she sees the Latin book, which gives her the idea, I can find out what the previous handmaid wrote in the closet. So then she asks him, and he reacts kind of, I think Scarlett, you were talking about it, how like pointedly.
Because she asks him, and he asks her, like, so where did you hear that? And she's like, oh, I heard it from a friend. And I don't remember exactly what she says, but I know he asks her 3 times. But when he asks her the 3rd time, he's more firm, like maybe getting not angry, but you see the vibe of the scene change. And I noticed on the rewatch. And then I think that's when she says, I heard it from a friend. And he says, did you know her from before? And when I saw the rewatch and I noticed this, I was like, okay, wait a minute. So she finds this in her room. Obviously, the other Offred wrote it. So I assume that Fred had this joke or had told the handmaid that same sentence at some point. Like, that's the connection. The show doesn't give us how that connection happened, but you can assume it because of his demeanor. And then she asks what happened to her. And that's when she finds out that her life was unbearable there, so she killed herself. That's what Fred says. Like, I guess she thought her life was unbearable here. Like, shocker. And she says, well, it'll be very bad if my life is the same. Like, I don't remember the exact same lines, but she uses that to kind of manipulate him. She says, I've been locked in my room and I've been losing touch, and it'll be a shame if that happened to me. And he says, it'll be a real tragedy. And then I remembered going back to that breakfast scene when Serena and him are talking, when he leaves for the meeting. Rita had already told Serena that June had fainted. And when he's walking out of the dining room, he looks up towards June's room. I hadn't noticed that either. Like, he was concerned for her.
I was actually watching him when Rita was telling Serena, and I didn't see as much of a reaction as I thought I would. And I'd stopped previous to apparently where you do see it, because I thought, I noticed you would be concerned.
I noticed it now in the rewatch, but that caught my attention because I couldn't understand like the meaning of the word. Like, obviously we know that sentence has a lot of meaning, but how it came to be until I rewatched it now, especially when he asked. So it was something between him. So we already knew that he did the same thing to the other Offred. Like, we can assume that from the get-go from this episode.
Well, so I wondered though, because she says to him, oh, and you're trying to make my life more bearable. I was unclear on whether she thinks that they did the Scrabble thing or he's doing it special for her.
The way he says it, the way he says to her, it will be a real tragedy. He looks straight at her and like he means it. Like, like you kind of assume that he's starting to care for her, maybe.
Right.
So she's going to use that to her advantage.
Right.
I mean,
and you see her mask, you see her fake, like you said, like very obvious.
Really obvious.
Fake manipulative voice. Yeah.
Like, everybody complains about her voice. Like, she has this baby voice, and okay, there's a reason for it. You know, they want to make sure that people know how stupid and how easy it is to manipulate Fred. That's why it's so obvious.
She has to appear meek to him.
Right. And it works because the next morning she walks out the door very excitedly. I love the music that they play here.
Yeah.
Perpetuum Mobile by Penguin Cafe. I'm probably saying that Penguin Cafe Orchestra. I am probably saying that wrong.
Perpetuum mobile.
Say that. Oh my God, she's our expert. Go ahead, Julia. What is that song?
It's also legend. So.
Oh.
How do you say it, Julia? Perpetuum?
Perpetuum mobile, I think.
Okay. Perpetuum Mobile by Penguin Cafe Orchestra. But it's like the perfect freedom, like soundtrack music. And she's walking outside and she sees Nick, and Nick's happy. By the way, quick side note, the script notes that are the fans that went before us, that went to the library, I believe said that Nick, there was a cut scene where he was talking to Fred about how June needed to get out of the room. So I would like to have seen that. But anyway, she's walking out. He's under the hood of the car. He literally just hangs out around the car in the hopes of seeing her.
And then he gives her that smile. It's like,
it's one of his best looks in the entire show, I think.
Definitely.
Like between both of them, it's very like happy between them both moment of you're walking outside of your room. This is awesome.
I noticed a parallel because when she goes outside to go to the doctor, it's raining outside and the weather is miserable.
You're right.
And then when she's at the doctor, I've noticed this about this show. You can always hear dogs barking. So like when she's on the table at the doctor's office, she hears dogs barking. But then the last scene when she goes outside, you know, when she's released from her room, it's sunny outside and I can hear the birds chirping. And I just thought it's interesting how they use those sounds to kind of show how her mood is changing. And like now all of a sudden she's happy and she's not mad at Nick because she smiles at him.
They're both very happy with each other at the moment. I love that. I really love that like look between them. It's one of my favorites. Also, then you get to see like the evil queen up in the castle staring down. Very classic evil queen scene. And
June is like proud, like rubbing. It's like she kind of looks at her.
Like
she does.
I outplayed you. Yeah.
Yep.
I love how the episode starts with like her in isolation, and then it ends on this like note of like solidarity with like the other handmaids. I thought
Yes,
that was really
'cause-
cool.
Yeah.
Playing the same song, which I
Yes.
still love so much. They then go to the flashback and they're all dropping their pieces of fruit that they've saved for her.
I saw that the parallel when they're giving her the food, you know, she's like, all her feet are all fucked up. They all come and they bring her food. And it was, you know, you kind of get elated when you see it because it's like a woman supporting woman kind of thing, which is part of the theme of the show. But then all the handmaids stand in front of her and they're in line standing in front of her, and June sits up and she's looking at them, and it looks like she's their leader. Like they're looking at her impressed because she tried to escape, and obviously she got fucked up. That's one of the punishments she got. And I'm going to circle back to that because people always say she never gets punished because they can't see her losing a finger or losing an eye or something, but she does get punished. And it was the aunt that obviously Moira told her, you know, if it ever comes to that, and she had no questions on beating her up. Right. And that's how you see how they dehumanize them. They're already ready to just fuck them up with not a care in the world, versus the way that Moira and June were, like, they didn't really hurt her that much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think the theme of this episode is definitely like women supporting women, because it starts out where, you know, the season starts out where Rita's very like stoic and kind of like seems like she doesn't want to get involved, but you can tell in this episode she cares about June. He tries to help her and goes to Serena and tries to like see if she can get her out of the room. And then you have June and Moira working together, and like, you know, June, as she's having her voiceovers throughout this episode, she's using Moira to like pump herself up. Like, I have to be a badass like her, like suck it up. And then it ends, you know, with the handmaids giving June food, their scraps of food, and then they're banding together, like forming their army in front of the Waterford house at the very last shot, which I think is just fascinating. It's great foreshadowing because you have the handmaid army and then the Waterfords in the back.
My favorite line of this episode was, Moira, you wouldn't stand for this shit. And like she uses that as her motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she sits up on the bed and looks at all of them after they've given her fruit and everything, and I don't know, she's been a lot of the episode looking beaten down, but you can tell also, I think, in makeup, like how like she's like glowing as they're like looking towards her. She's feeling strong and powerful, the way that you said, like she looks like a leader. Like I think there are a lot of clues in that scene that show that she is about to be a lot stronger than she has been.
Okay, I think that is a wrap on our spoiler-free analysis of Season 1, Episode 4. If you are a longtime fan of the show, come find us on Wednesday when we do our deep dive into the same episode, full of spoilers. And if you're a new watcher, we'll see you next Monday to analyze Season 1, Episode 5, spoiler-free. Thanks again for listening to Above the Garage.
You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's her day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.